Hello BookTube, my name is Elizabeth and I read book as in French and books in English. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is a recent reads video where I will talk about what I've read recently. And because I haven't done one since the end of February, it's also some sort of half-month wrap-up. But at the same time, even though I've read quite a few books, I don't have that many books to talk about because I want to talk about them in a different video. Case in point, the first book I finished in March was Emma by Jane Austen, and I don't want to tell you what I thought about it because I'm keeping this for Jane Austen July. So book number one that I'm not talking about, which is a bit weird. And then I read a bunch of books for March Mystery Madness, but then the event is not over yet, so I think I will do a wrap-up of March Mystery Madness. So I'll just mention quickly the books. I read A Murder in Chianti by Camilla Trinchieri. It's the first book that I read by her. I thought it was a solid mystery. I liked it. It did the job. It is not reinventing the wheel in any way, shape, or form, but it does the job. I quite liked it. And there's a blurb on the cover by Martin Walker. And I thought, Martin Walker, he writes a series I like. So I read the third one in the series. So this is the first one. It's the only one I own on paper. I read the other electronically. So I read number 2 last year, and this month I read number 3, which is A Black Diamond. And I liked it less. The reason I did not like it was not because the book wasn't good. It was because it took a turn. This one, the first one, is quite cozy. But the third one is not at all, and I prefer my mysteries on the cozy side, so that's why I liked it less. And it made me think a bit about what we expect in cozy mysteries, and I think I'm going to do a video about that precisely. What do we mean by cozy mysteries, and what do we expect, and perhaps what I like and don't like in mysteries and something like that. So I'll keep my impressions for a later video. And then I read a third mystery, which is Behind the Shattered Glass by Tasha Alexander. This is part of the Lady Emily series, a Lady Emily mystery, yeah. And it's the first one that I'm reading. It's not the first one in the series. I grabbed it at the library. It was one of the few they had. It sounded interesting, so I decided just to dive into it, and I absolutely loved it. This one is very cozy. And this one also fits the theme 2x2 for this year March Mystery Madness, because it doubles as a romance. Each chapter is divided in 2. The first part is upstairs, the second part is downstairs, and it follows in parallel, well, not necessarily in parallel because both stories are intertwined, but there is a mystery and there's a romance also. So that was absolutely adorable. So those are the books I'm not going to talk about. Now to do the books. No, there's another book I'm not going to talk about. It's a book that I read for Herstoryathon, and it's not translated in English, so I won't say too much about it. It is about the widow of Mozart. So it is a historical fiction. So it's not non-fiction, it's a historical fiction, and the author is Isabelle Duquesnoy. And I only like this book so. I have a few things, a few bones to pick with the author. And the main one is that the author apparently did so much research that she didn't want to let go of it. And that shows in the footnotes. There are so many footnotes. It's to the point that it's annoying. There were, I think, 75 footnotes on a book that is about 200 pages. And most of the footnotes were useless. This is not a critical edition, so this is a novel. It's a contemporary novel. I think it's the author's job to present a book that should be readable on its own, and that doesn't need extra explanation. And for that, she does a good job. The explanations are useless. One of the footnotes that bothered me the most was at the beginning, and the author took the time to mention that the final scene in the movie Amadeus, where Mozart is sort of brought to the cemetery and taken to a common grave in a reusable coffin, that this was not possible because the laws at the time did not permit it. So the scene in the movie is wrong. And I was wondering, why does the author think it's important to yank me out of her own story just to point out that a movie is wrong? So it really bothered me, and that was quite an early footnote. So every footnote afterward bothered me. So that was one of the main reasons I did not like this book. And it sort of set me on edge, just all of these footnotes. And there were a few other things I didn't like, but then it's not translated in English, so it's not your problem. And then also for Herstoryathon, I read this graphic novel, Marie Curie. This one is translated from the Italian and it exists in English. The title in English is Marie Curie, A Life of Discovery. I liked it so-so. I don't know if it's graphic nonfiction or graphic novel. I don't know what the difference is. If this had been told as a story, I would have considered it a historical novel, because there are scenes in there we have to assume that we don't know whether they happened or not. They have been fictionalized, so for me that makes it a novel. There are a few things that I didn't like in this book. The thing is that some of the images are done in watercolor, and these I like. Those are mainly the setting, the wide-angled scenes, and some others are made in pencil, in colored pencil, and these I didn't like as much. And the ones I liked the less, well, not the ones, but the thing that I liked the less was the faces. I thought they were not very expressive. So it made the reading a bit bland, I guess. Because I had some sort of an epiphany when I read this book. I realized that in a graphic novel, all the information that would otherwise not be communicated in dialogue has to be communicated through the drawings. It has to come through the images. So in a novel, there's some part narration, some part dialogues. But in the graphic novel, you only have, the only writing you have is a dialogue. So everything else has to come through in the drawings. So I sort of realized that while reading this. And in this particular case, I thought the drawings were not sufficient to bring out all the context that was needed, to bring out all of the atmosphere, all of the, all that was necessary to bring the dialogue to life. So that's why I have just a moderate appreciation for this book. I liked it, it was interesting, but nothing more than that. And then, okay, so that leaves me with two books that I actually want to talk about because, because I have things to say, but at the same time, I don't have that many things to say. So one other book that I read recently was Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So this is one of the books that is one of the final 48 for the BookTube Prize in the nonfiction division. And I want to read, not necessarily as many as I can, but I want to read quite a few of the nonfiction, of the books that are on the long list. And this one was very, very short, so that's why I decided to read it. And I liked it only so-so. I think the reason is I'm not concerned by this book, and I'm grateful for that. This book is about the grief that the author felt when her father died quite suddenly, even though her father was somewhat aged. I think he was in his 80s. He was 80-something. But he died quite suddenly, and she talks about her grief. And I have the privilege of never having gone through such a grief. My parents are still alive. I haven't lost any brother or spouse or children or friends. I've never even lost a dog because I never had one, and not even a cat. I've never had one. So I don't really know what it feels like to grieve. And I think that's one of the reasons why it went quite above my head. I can see it's well written. I can see there are clever insights, and I can see that it's well done in general. But I cannot say that I felt anything particular, and I think it's because I don't have the life experience to fully appreciate it. And it's quite short. I think that's the main thing. If I'm allowed to make predictions as to the BookTube Prize, I don't think it's going to make it to the second round because it's too short. It's just, it's 65 pages, but I mean, there's 1 or 2 paragraphs per page. So if it had been printed on regular print, it would have been barely 20 pages. So I don't think such a short book can really compete with the other books. It doesn't have enough content, in my opinion, I think. I haven't read the others, all of the others at least. So I cannot really say, but that would be my prediction, that it won't make it through the second round. So that's another book that I read. And the last book that I finished so far in March is Tangle by Georgette. So this is a Regency romance. The premise, as it opens, We have two young ladies dressed in black. One of them, who is 25 years old, her name is Lady Serena, and she is not very well named. She has a very fiery temper. So Lady Serena is 25 years old, unmarried, and she has just lost her father. And the other woman in black is actually her stepmother, so her father's second wife, who is younger than her. She is 21, 22. I don't think her age is precisely mentioned, but she's around that, 21, 22, maybe 23, but she's younger than Lady Serena. And so they are in mourning, and they find life a bit boring because, of course, Lady Serena is the daughter of an earl, and the new earl, however nice he is, took possession of the house, and Lady Serena and the Dowager Countess have taken possession of the dower house, and they live in a small village, and they find it a bit boring, so they end up going to Bath to avoid gossip and to just to breathe a little, just to find a bit of serenity and happiness. And yeah, and things happen. People fall in love, and it's just an absolutely lovely romance. I just liked it very, very much. So those are the books that I have finished. As for what I am currently reading, I have a bunch of books on the go. I have started Dante's comedy. As I said at the beginning of the month, I am reading this very, very slowly, 1 or 2 chapters a week. So I've read 5 chapters or 5 cantos so far. And for each one, I listen to Tom's video, I take notes, and it's the only way I think that I can enjoy it, by reading very, very slowly. And the other book that I'm reading for March of the Mammoth is this big biography of Beethoven. I am not quite halfway through, even though half the month has passed. I'm at page 436 out of 946. So I still have 500 pages to go. But so far, I'm reading about 1 chapter a day. More than about. I'm reading 1 chapter a day. There are 33 chapters. I am 1 chapter ahead of the schedule. So if I read 2 chapters on Saturday or Sunday this weekend, I'm going to be on schedule to finish it for the end of the month. And that is something I would very much like, to finish it before the end of the month. So I am enjoying this book. If you're thinking about reading it, you should know that this book is very much about the music of Beethoven. There's 1 full chapter that is just a music analysis of Beethoven's 3rd Symphony. So if you do not care much about the music, you just want to learn about his life, his private life, his character, and things that happened to him, and don't care much about the music, I would not suggest this particular biography. There's quite a lot of music analysis in it. I like it, and I'm reading it while listening to it. So I'm reading the book with my phone just right beside me, and the phone not being used as a phone, of course, but being used as some sort of music not recorder, but music player. And I find on YouTube a version of whatever piece is being talked about, and I listen to it at the same time. So it makes the reading a bit slower, but it makes it so much more interesting. So I'm reading this. I am also reading The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So this is for March Mystery Madness. I am at page 40 out of 220, I think. So not quite 25% in. And I know who the murderer is. I know how it ends. I've never read it before, but I just know it. Yeah, I don't know exactly how come, but I know who. Or maybe I saw an adaptation on TV. It's probably that. So, but anyway, the thing is that because I know who it is, I read it very differently. I'm not trying to figure it out. I'm just seeing all the foreshadowing and all the red herrings. And I think so far, it's really well done. And that is what I am enjoying. I can sort of see the craft of Agatha Christie as I read, how well she built her novel so that what should be obvious is not obvious at all. Yeah, so I am very much enjoying this. And the fourth book that I am currently reading is a Balzac, Cousin Pons. And the reason I decided to start it is that in the Martin Walker mystery that is set in southern France, there's a character named Pons, Pons. And I thought, oh, I have a book with that name in the title. So I decided to pick up this one. And I am about 200 pages in out of 450. And it's just so-so. It's not the most famous of Balzac's books, and I'm thinking that it's probably for a reason. I don't think it's the best. I haven't read a ton of Balzac. I read one in college that I did not like, which was Old Goriot or Father Goriot, or I don't know exactly how it's translated. And it was one of the longer ones. And in recent years, I've read 3 more Balzacs I quite liked, but they were much shorter. So I think the problem in this one is that I don't think there's enough material for a book of 450 pages. I think it would have been more interesting if it was shorter. I think, because I'm only at page 200, there's still more than half the book left to read, so there's probably a bunch more things that are going to happen, but so far I think it's starting to lack some energy to propel me forward. So I took a break in it and I decided to start the Agatha Christie. So yeah, in order, I was reading this one before, but I decided to take a break. So that is where I am. So I have nothing else to add. I guess that means I should conclude this video by thanking you for watching. So thank you for watching. Hello to all the newcomers, because I still have new people coming to me, which is kind of nice. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next video. À la prochaine.